Devlin, Untamed. The platform.
Welcome to the podcast, people. iOS is the name of the show. It's only sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. That's what we do. 3 hours every afternoon on the platform. Download the platform app. You can listen to the whole show live. Subscribe to Platform Plus. You can go back and listen to the whole show whenever you want to. Otherwise, if it's a lot more convenient, just to log in every night, courtesy of Spotify or iHeart or wherever you're listening to this podcast on. Well, we love the fact that you are taking the time to join us. And all we do all afternoon is talk about sport, but of course, sometimes sport and politics share the same bed, don't they? Like has happened over the last couple of days. We had an interview with Lee, the CEO of the Hurricanes. We played that on air today. We're not going to include that in the podcast. Got a couple of comments about that. But I want to concentrate on some other sporting issues which have come to the fore. Ross Taylor saying today on an ESPN cricket podcast that he believes that Neil Wagner was railroaded out of the Black Caps, that he didn't want to retire at that time, calling into question also Tim Southee's captaincy. Well, Simon Doull joins us exclusively to talk all about that. Rugby League and the big build-up to the Warriors opening match Friday night against the Sharks. Monty Betham was sidelined at training today, picked his brain about the lineup that was announced yesterday. More on the league, ARU, Andy Raymond, unfiltered. What kind of penalty is Spencer Leniu going to cop for calling Ezra Mam a monkey? On the show today also, the BTE, the Brendon Telfer experience. We'll try and include bits and pieces from all of this and start the show the same way every day. The Hurricanes Poua debacle, and that's exactly what it has been. Tablets in hand, I say, gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. So where does this all end up with the Hurricanes Poua? Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
So all's well that ends well. The women who were behind the rewriting and performance of the Hurricanes Poua offensive haka have been publicly admonished. This means it won't be being performed again and should also effectively end forever the stupidity of allowing players to use their employment platforms to espouse radical or any other political views. Lee, Hurricane CEO, has done a round of interviews in the last 18 hours, all of them on message saying how disappointed he is, how the words and actions of this haka do not at all fit with Hurricanes team/franchise values, and how those involved did it without proper prior notification or consultation. What they did, captain and haka rewriter, is deliberately sneak this past those in charge, who they should have run it by. That would have been the courteous and adult thing to do, but they didn't. I quote, "We strategically told them at the last minute." That's called sneaky. That's called underhanded. That's clearly one or two people thinking this was a good idea and railroading it past everyone else before they had a chance to fully consider the words and any repercussions that might result. In my mind, these players need to be stood down for a week. It's an employment contract issue. They have brought their franchise and the game into disrepute, and there should be a consequence. Their behaviour is so self-entitled and damaging. I think that a week's suspension would be entirely appropriate at this time. Of course, it's not going to happen. It won't happen. The women involved, let's get this clear, are only playing professional rugby because it is entirely 100% subsidised. Their jobs are a privilege. They're not a right. Their entitlement is insulting. I want to play rugby for a job, and so therefore somebody should pay for it. There needs to be a big wake-up broom swept through this sport. You don't have an audience. You have no spectators. You have no commercial sponsors. You earn no money. You have no Sky TV viewers. That's the truth. And now you've probably, because of these actions, got even less of all of those. There has to be something put in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And maybe what Lee, and I credit him for the way that he has behaved about this, he has been clear, he has been authoritative, he has been immediate, and he's displayed a level of class where, just through his tact and diplomacy, no one loses face here. But I think the point he makes is absolutely clear. Look, if there is one good thing to come out of all of this, it is that now it will end the idea of New Zealand professional athletes using their privileged positions to protest. In this case, we will get back to doing what the whole thing is actually meant to be about, which is playing rugby, which is also not using your professional platform to espouse radical, separatist, racist ideology.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Lachlan, we've got some headlines, and then Dooley's are waiting in Australia. Fanning around.
Yeah, would you say me to stop fanning around?
I said stop fanning around.
Stop fanning. I've got a bulletin ready here.
Yes,
I'm taking calls. I'm pushing buttons.
I love saying that. Oh, shit, sorry.
I'm hitting faders. Did you just kick your dog?
I just kicked Puppy, sorry.
Good job.
Puppy's in the studio, comes into work every Wednesday with his
There
dad.
might be some barks in the background, just a warning. All right, where do I start? I'll start with Chris Hipkins, Leader of the Opposition, who had some words this morning when he was speaking on News Hub's AM show.
It's so predictable, Lachlan, come on.
Well, let me continue. He has defended sport's freedom to protest despite outrage over the Hurricanes Poua, haka, referring to the redneck government. That was, of course, before the Super Rugby Opigi season opener against Chiefs Manawa over the weekend. Now, I'll read out a couple of quotes here.
No, don't. Move on.
Well, it's my bulletin.
Oh, okay. All right. I can't be bothered listening to this.
Yeah, my bulletin. We live in a democracy. I support free speech. I support people being able to say things that I disagree with or the current government might disagree with. Now, there needs to be an asterisk next to this, and the reason why I say that is because Chris Hipkins, the question that he was asked before answering this question was, what are your thoughts on politics and sport? It wasn't, what's your thoughts on this situation? It was, what are your thoughts on it in general and people having freedom of speech? Obviously, he's going to say, I agree with freedom of speech, because if he doesn't, then he just sounds like a dickhead. Story done. All right, Black Caps legend Ross Taylor insists that national selectors have forced veteran fast bowler Neil Wagner into premature retirement with a must-win test looming against Australia in Christchurch. These are a couple of quotes that he said did Ross Taylor on ESPN's Around the Wicket podcast. I think it all makes sense a little bit now. There's no sugarcoating it. I think it's a forced retirement. If you listen to Wagner's press conference, he was retiring, but it was after the last test match, so he did make himself available. And if you remember, during that series against South Africa, there was pictures of him tossing the bird, pulling the finger at someone, and then I think telling someone to shush as well, or those gestures at least. Now, this came out yesterday, but it's important news because, you know, it's the Warriors. Their team's been named to take on the Cronulla Sharks this weekend in their season opener. Friday night at Mount Smart. You're not going to go, are you, Marty?
I'll either watch it. No, I'll probably watch it in the pub, actually, to be honest.
I'm thinking, well, you got a great game after that between the Storm and the Panthers.
That's it.
I mean, that is pubbaroonie.
Pubbarama. And also, the $80 Uber fare back just kills me, mate. So
can't do that.
Unless I get a freebie.
Yeah. This is the Warriors team. No real big surprises. Tane Tuopiki is starting at fullback. Chance Nickel Klukstar still injured. There is also... his name escapes me. Another guy's injured. Forward. Marata Niokore. There we go. That took me a while. He's out injured as well.
I love the way the filing cabinet worked, though, mate. I mean, it clicked into gear.
It did,
it
really
did.
Yeah, that took me. I was going to say Brendon Telfer.
That's pretty good, mate. That's pretty good.
But yeah, other than that, no major surprises. Luke Metcalf and Sean Johnson in the halves. Adam Fanua, Blake Mitchell Barnett are the front row waiting at hook. Kurt Capel making his NRL debut for the Warriors. His club debut in the NRL for the Warriors, if that makes sense. Freddie Lussick, Tom Ale, Bunty Afo, Dylan Walker is the bench. In terms of the reserves, Adam Pompey, Jazz Tavanga, Tamare Martin, Ali Leatoa and Jacob Laban, because with Pompey in the reserves, that means that Rockaberry and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck are the centres. Marcelo Montoya on one of the wings. Of course, Dallin is on the other one. Welsh Rugby International Johnny McNichol will play in Super Rugby Pacific for the Crusaders this season, with the New Zealand-born outside back returning home after asking to be released early from his Scarlets contract. Former Wimbledon and French Open champion Simona Halep has had her 4-year doping ban cut to 9 months by the top court for global sport, which makes the world number one eligible to return to competition immediately. Because it's already been 9 months. Oh, gosh. All right, Champions League matches this morning. There was a couple on. Bayern Munich beating Lazio 3-0 means they win 3-1 on aggregate. Jeez, they needed that, Bayern Munich. They were in a torrid run of form. PSG beating Real Sociedad 2-1, so they win 4-1 on aggregate. So Bayern Munich and PSG advance. No major surprises there. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
I'm as bad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
The platform.
Simon Doull, 98 Test wickets for New Zealand. Very proud black cap. Spends his whole life now touring the world, commentating, covering cricket. His thoughts on Ross Taylor's comments today about Tim Southee, should he continue to be captain, was Neil Wagner forced into early retirement when in actual fact he should have played these 2 tests against Australia. Why don't we ever play a spinner in this country? And what hope in hell have we got in that second test? Here's Dooley. Simon, when Ross said that the opposition planned for him, that to me is the key comment. They fully expected him to play.
Yeah, they did. And also they would be wary of what he has done in the past. And when you're wary of a player or a batter or a bowler, you have to make certain plans for them. And they would have certainly he would have taken up a lot of time in that batting and that team meeting, I believe, just because of the way he goes about things, the constant pressure you're under when you're facing a bowler like Neil Wagner, and what the batters have to go through mentally and physically to combat it.
Look, when he retired last week, and we had him on the program as well, and I kind of got caught up and lost in the fact that, wow, this guy's he's such a fan favourite. The people love him, and celebrating his career in that, and didn't really probe too much into why you're retiring now. It did seem really strange that all of a sudden, hang on a second, he says he's available, but he's actually going to retire before he's needed. Why hasn't he been selected? And then they bring Kugelijn in, and you think, well, if Kugelijn can come in, why wouldn't you pick Wagner? Do you believe that there is more to this story now than what we've been told?
I think there might be, and I know Neil Wagner well enough to know that he's never going to come out and say anything against the establishment or against New Zealand cricket or against his teammates. He's just not that sort of bloke. Was he forced into it? You get the feeling that he might have been forced into it now, which is a terrible shame, really. And, I'm also not a fan, Marty, of a last test hurrah just for the sake of it. No. You're sort of completely out of it. I'm not a fan of that. So I'm not saying that that's what should have happened. They don't give him something just for the sake of giving him something and letting him say goodbye if he's not good enough to do it. But I still think he's good enough to do it. And I think that's the key. So there is certainly more to it now from what we're hearing, I think, than maybe, what has been said so far.
Simon Doull is with us, 98 Test wickets for New Zealand. He spends his whole life going around the world commentating cricket in Sydney at the moment. Were you surprised at the result at the Basin Reserve? And the sub-part of that question is, we prepared a pitch that was green and grassy, and then we got skittled out twice for under 200 by their pace bowlers. Nathan Lyon came in and took, 10 wickets or something on a track that wasn't meant to spin that much. So a lot of questions in there for you, obviously, but it's your cricket brain. I want to answer those.
Surprised? No, because I think we have a real mental block against Australia. I just don't think that we can find a way, and they know that they're better than us as well, which is part of an answer to your question. Nathan Lyon is an absolute gun. He is a genius of a bowler. Very few finger spinners around the world have ever been able to do and will ever do again what he's been able to do. Only Ashwin in the subcontinent. And Ashwin's developed carom balls and different types of delivery. Nathan Lyon is an out-and-out finger spinner, an off spinner, who has got an incredible test match record. So it's no disgrace being bowled out by him twice, but the bottom line is it shouldn't really be happening in our backyard for under 200. And that would be the concern for me. Guys just unable to play against Australia and big names. I mean, I look at Kane Williamson's record, and Kane is a terrific player. And don't get me wrong, I've always said he's one of New Zealand's greatest players and probably will be one of New Zealand's greatest players of all time. But you look at his record against the big three, he averages less than 38 against India, Australia, and England at the moment, and that would be a concern for him. I just for a sort of a point of reference, I went back through Martin Crowe's record just against probably the best bowling attacks in his time, and against Pakistan he averaged 57, against the West Indies 48, and against Australia 45. Now they were probably the three best bowling attacks and the three best sides he played against in his career. So I just wanted a bit of a comparison, just to figure out, Kane's three best bowling attacks have easily been India, England, and Australia that he's played up against. And he averages less than 38 against all of them, yet he averages 57 over his career. So he will know those numbers, and he would want to improve those numbers, but he kind of has to lead, because if he's not getting runs against these good sides, then very few others are going to. The form of, obviously, prior to this test match, the form of some of New Zealand's players would be a concern, that's for sure. So there's a lot of worries. I think the future-proofing, the future planning. Sorry about the crossing sign, Marty.
That's right.
The future-proofing, the future planning for New Zealand cricket hasn't been great on bringing players through and sort of assisting in that way. I don't think that's been great. So, there's a few things about where New Zealand cricket are at and a bit of work to do.
Would you replace Tim Southee as captain? Would you do it before this game? Would you do it after this test? Or would you continue with him as captain?
I wouldn't do it before this test match. I think that's too disruptive at this point in time. Was he the future when he took over? Absolutely not. But again, I go back to that future-proofing. What did New Zealand cricket do? What did Gary Stead and even Kane and under that regime, who did they bring on that was 25, 26, 27 that could have taken over the captaincy post Kane's tenure, post even this tenure of Tim? If they said to Tim, look, you got a couple of years, we just want a little bit more experience for this particular person, and then we'll go from there. Who have they done that to? Who have they brought into the side that has real captaincy ability and that can actually captain for the next 5, 6, 7 years? I think that's probably the concern. I don't think there has been enough planning moving forward from the whole regime for quite a long time. And that goes back to Bolt, Southee, Wagner. Matt Henry getting very few test matches over a career, very sporadic. We didn't have a future plan, I don't think, post the Bolt, Southee, Wagner era. And they were all so terrific for New Zealand. And when you got a trio that's got in excess of 200 wickets apiece and two of them with in excess of 300, it's unheard of in New Zealand cricket history. But you've got to find a way to give some guys an opportunity along the way, and we just didn't do that.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Up the Waz. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. After the fourth place finish last year and one game away from the grand final, how's it all going to unfold for the Warriors this year? Strongest possible lineup, minus a couple of people who are injured, for the Sharks on Friday. Sideline at training, he has spent the last couple of months with an eagle eye on his beloved Warriors boys. Here's Monty Betham, Centurion for the Warriors. Hey, Mons, you're at training at the moment, mate. What are you seeing?
Look, I'm seeing a lot of excited people, hearing a lot of talk, which you'll hear as well. In the background, we've got two teams currently going through some of their drills for the weekend as we think about the first 13 that are going out, or 17 that get round one start against the Sharks. You can't forget that there's a whole host of stars that are playing in the Cup game before that. A lot of big names, Martin Martin, you've got Shano Harris Tavita, Ed Corsi, Jazz Tavanga, Ali Lautau, and the list goes on, man.
Well, that just says to me that there's strength and depth.
Absolutely. I think last year I was surprised on how much depth I saw. I think there was one place coming into the squad and being close to the action, thinking we probably wouldn't have the depth, but the next man up mentality that they had at the club, which Andrew Webster brought to the team and squad, which was a necessity, proved to be well last year. So a lot more squad in terms of depth this year, and there's still a few injuries out there, but regardless, there's a whole host of good players that can get their chance this week to put up their hand for the first time in round one.
Yeah, Mons, I mean, the amount of time that you spent at the club as well, I'm sure there were occasions where players sulked and they didn't want to play the reserve grade or the NSW Cup or whatever it was. What is the feeling within this team now? Is it a hell of a lot more unified? Are you kind of detecting that?
I was at training yesterday, and when they named the team, when we knew who was going to be in, who was going to be out, we already had Martin Martin and Chanel Harris Tavita staying in behind late after the first grade training to see what their combos were going to be like for the weekend. And his words himself to Martin Martin was, we're trying to get our combos right so we can get back into the team. So that's the sort of mentality you want, and that's what you want to get. And that's the way it's been. Everyone's really upbeat still. I know it's only round one, but everyone just doesn't want to miss out. They've all got FOMO here, and they realise that there is depth, but they also feel like they've got enough chances that can get presented in front of them. They know that Webby's fair and that Webby gave the first shot to this first group this Friday.
Couple of combinations that have been selected. Luke Metcalf at 6. Did that surprise you? And what have you seen so far from just him training and observed as to why Webby might have made that call?
Well, I think Luke's got the most time out of everyone in the trials. It didn't help with Tamati had to go play Māoris, and now Harris Tavita's body's been finding a little bit more difficult coming back. And, I think he's only going to have limited game time this weekend at Cup. He was a little bit tight on the weekend, so didn't play against the Dolphins. But two big parts of Luke's game where he struggled last year was we know he's got God-given speed, and he probably tried too much to use it and run with the detriment to some of his outside backs. But this year we've seen that he was really being good in terms of getting those people outside him in better positions, trying to use the ball a little bit more, not force his hand when to run, but also defensively. Defensively, he's been sound. They've been trying to target him in the Dolphins game, and he came up with some big one-on-one tackles. He's been hunting from the inside. So, he gets the first opportunity, first cab off the rank, so to speak, and he probably deserves it, I must say.
Can he provide an added dimension to the kicking game as well? Take some of the pressure off Sean in that department?
Yeah, I think he can. But we know that Sean is that guy that is going to be the alpha, and he wants to step up, and he has got a great kicking game. And at times through last year, his kicking game got us out of a lot of trouble, got the Warriors out of a lot of trouble. So he'll probably be doing less of the two in terms of kicking, but also, Wade Egan, I've been seeing him having boot to ball a little bit through the off-season or pre-season. So that's another little added dimension to a kicking game. Whether he shows that early or not at all, who knows? Because, one thing as a hooker, you don't want to overplay your hand, especially when you've got a great kicker in SJ Sean Johnson.
We're talking about the Warriors lineup announced yesterday. Home match kicked the season off against the Sharks Friday night, and the Centurion, the former club captain, Monty Betham, is with us. I'm just going to go through a couple of positions. Tainei Tuapiki at fullback, what's he going to bring?
Oh, look, speed. Last year was in a training trial contract. He signed after getting his boarding pass to play in Townsville, playing 80 minutes. Webby absolutely loves him. We know that Roger can play fullback, but Webby's putting all his trust in him. And I tell you what, he's lightning. He was Queensland Cup Player of the Year 2 years ago, which was 2022, before he came to the club. He's got plenty of speed. He's a great talker at the back. And we saw a couple of little moves in and around the ruck, similar to the old Melbourne Storm of late with myself and Egan and Walker. So, that speed kills, and he's so excited for the opportunity. So I'm looking for a lot of enthusiasm from him on Friday.
RTS, is this going to be his permanent position? We're not going to see him flirt with fullback. We're not going to see him moving around. You actually see him in the centres for the season?
Well, look, it's just my point of view, not Webby's point of view, but I could see him even playing on the wing. I could see someone like Ali Leotawa coming into the centres and Roger playing there. We know he can play a fullback, but when you've got Chance and you've got Tane there, he's probably third choice. But the fact that he can play majority minutes and just roam, because he's smart enough to know where to be at the right times if he's got to hold a shape and position on the wing or in the centre, but he also knows where to move, or like a lot of other big names in the team, how to contribute, to know there's moments in a game when you can change the tempo, we can change the momentum, and he's a very smart player, and I've been loving what I've seen from him in the 2 pre-season trials.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly a minute or so on each. When the bell reminds us on to the next topic we go. Should Southey be replaced as captain? Who gets it if that's the case? We're going to run through some Tim Southey stats over the last summer of Test cricket. The Warriors lineup. You must just be shaking like a dog doing raisins, Lachlan. Your Broncos.
Why?
Well, look at that Warriors lineup. Who's beating us this year? Where is New Zealand Rugby on the Hurricanes Poua debacle? They own the franchise. Hear that sound? That's every executive at NZR House running for... It's not me. It's not me. Get the Hurricanes to do it. Get the Hurricanes to do it. The Politburo owns the Hurricanes. Why are you so silent on this? Was Wags forced into retirement? Champions League. Bayern Munich going to win it now, Lachlan? Saudi Arabia have put an official bid in to host the 2034 FIFA World Cup. Why bother? We already know that you're getting it anyway. You don't have to bid for it. They were giving it to you. And Spencer Lenu. Is he going to get a fair trial? I mean, so many players are commenting about this. Now people are going out to Betham saying, he's not going to get a fair trial. I'm sure he'll be well looked after. All right, let's kick it. Southey is captain. We're about 3 minutes away from Kurt Eklund either ringing through or not ringing through, Lachlan.
No.
It's going to be tomorrow?
I think it's
Okay.
by the looks. Unless it's being pushed back by about half an hour.
Okay, well, we look forward to whenever he comes on the program. Should Southey be replaced as captain? Should it be Daryl Mitchell?
Well, you're putting words in my mouth. And maybe I don't want Daryl Mitchell as the captain.
I'm asking you.
I don't know who'd be the captain. I don't think Southey should have been the captain in the first place. I didn't like the fact that Kane was not the captain anymore, but he didn't want to be the captain, right? So, I mean, who screams, apart from Daryl Mitchell and that team, who we both like, who screams out captaincy material?
Maybe Glenn Phillips
Just because he's fiery?
in the white
See, the
ball.
thing is that what you're doing in the white ball.
Yeah, only in
So
the
not
white
Test.
ball. Not
No,
Test.
talk about Test. We'll talk about Test.
Oh, Test is Daryl, no question. It's
So-
either Daryl or Tom Latham.
The
But
thing
I
is-
don't know if Tom Latham gets his place in the team every time we play.
Well, he does, because he's probably one of our, at least of the modern era, he's probably our third best batsman ever. Of the modern era, excuse me. Well, doing some. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Now, Tom Latham, a few years back, this was in 2019, 2020, there was rumours that Gary Stead actually didn't want Kane as captain anymore and wanted to elevate Latham to the captaincy, and that bubbled away for about a week, and then it was put to bed, and no, Kane was not reinstated, but was re-emphasised as the captain of the team. So it probably will be Tom Latham. But it's funny, we gravitate towards anyone with a hint of a personality that we see on the screen.
That's true. That's
so
true.
we see Darren Mitchell, you see Glenn Phillips, but on the white ball side, these are two guys who show something interesting about themselves
Well,
from time
also,
to
you've
time.
got to be a guy that's going to be on the team sheet every single time. And those two guys are.
Okay, name me 4 guys who are on the test team sheet regardless for the next 2-3 years. Daryl Mitchell's one.
Daryl Mitchell.
Kane, as long as he wants to play.
Kane wants to play.
Probably Ravindra now,
Yep.
but he's not a captain. He's too young.
Latham at the moment, as you say, opening.
You just said he might not be on the team sheet every game.
Well, okay.
Every match.
All right. Phillips.
Yeah, at the moment, probably Phillips, yeah.
Yeah.
Geez, pace bowling's going. Maybe
Well,
Matt Henry.
I was just thinking Matt Henry, yeah.
Yeah, because there's no other real pace
So
bowler.
you can't, no, he's not
Well,
captain.
Rourke's too young.
Yeah. I mean, there's only a few candidates. Mitchell, to me, that's the name that stands out.
Yeah.
Tim Southey, by the way, people. 4 wickets over 3 tests here during the summer. He got 4 wickets against Bangladesh over there. He's had 4 wickets and 3 tests here in New Zealand conditions on green seaming pitches. Okay? Just keep that in mind when you think about should he even be in the team at the moment. Where is New Zealand Rugby on the Hurricanes Poua thing, and why won't they say anything given the fact that actually they own the franchise and they pay all these players?
Well, there's two angles. There's the reason why they're not, and there's what they should be doing. The reason why they're not is because they're not being prompted to talk. So obviously, no one in the media, or not enough people, us to an extent included, aren't hammering away and having a go at NZR.
So the reports that I've read, anyone that's gone to them, they've said this is the Hurricanes to deal with. We might say something after they do it.
away.
That's
NZR
about it.
are brilliant at that.
That's what they
and
are.
how much I've dealt with them in the last 4 or 5 years.
You can
6 years.
imagine Mark Robinson.
Time frame
Oh, we just
lapse
we
in
haven't
terms of being
been
able to make that happen.
to meet about that and talk about that, right?
But they wouldn't, because it's such a sensitive topic. They do all they can to avoid it, even though they are at the top of the pyramid in terms of authority when it comes to an issue like this and dealing with it.
Yeah.
And because they, as you said before, they own the Hurricanes, they own 51%
And they write the
of the
policy,
Hurricanes.
and they're the ones who deal with the Players Association.
And they're probably the ones who put the squeezer on the Hurricanes to deal with it.
But the sound of silence is deafening, and the sound of silence is also gutless from New Zealand Rugby. They need to take the lead here, and they need to be firm about it. And they had the chance with Ruby Tui last year. If this was anyone other than Māori women doing this, would they behave differently? I think the answer to that is yes, and I think it's quite obvious that it's yes. I think it's so sensitive. They think it's so sensitive, whereas it's actually not sensitive at all. It's just a blanket policy. Here's the policy.
Yeah, but
We are apolitical.
You know how they operate. They operate in a manner in which they are so
operate under
scared
fear.
to offend
That's it.
people.
You know.
But this is like any sort of organisation, any sort of team or business or whatever. And it's like what I always really admired about Sir Alex Ferguson. Obviously, I've read more about it than actually seen him because I only saw the end of his career as manager. That he never really threw players under the bus. He always sort of stood at the front. He was the main layer
He's
of
the
blame.
villain a lot of the time.
NZR kind of need to do a similar thing, not in terms of making themselves the villain, but be the person at the front. When something like this happens, front up, say, this is how we're dealing with it, this is what we're doing. We'll give you a media window for you to ask your questions, we'll answer them, we're putting a line in the sand, blah, blah, blah. They need to be authoritative in this situation.
But, I mean,
But they're not.
Look who runs them.
I know.
Okay, look
I
who
know.
runs them. Was Wags forced into retirement early? Ross Taylor says yes.
I would say more likely than not, which is what I said about an hour
It
ago.
appears that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's increasingly appearing that he didn't want to go when he was told he had to go.
My first thought, and this is coupled with the Wagner pulling the finger at the crowd and then shushing, well, not the crowd, but pulling the finger at someone and then shushing someone in the South African Test series, which I don't think was to the South Africans. I don't think would have any reason to do that to them. You know, to do that
they were
to
getting dicked.
a G team. Yeah, that's
Well,
hard, isn't it?
Exactly, turning around and yelling at your grandchild. Yeah,
Yeah.
gave you one, didn't we?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm 6. But it's. I thought when I saw that Ross Taylor clip, I saw it last night. I thought, I don't think he would say that unless I don't think Ross Taylor's the kind of person who would say something quite extreme unless he knew that was the case.
That's what I figure as well. Yeah, look, there's and knowing Ross a little bit, I totally agree with that. I think that he has some oil, and that is why he's spoken about it. We are the Warriors, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to the song, chant it out. We're beating Cronulla, we're polling Cronulla, we're rissoling Cronulla, we are bum-shellacking Cronulla. It's a gimme. That's 2 points. I'm writing it down now.
Not a gimme.
I'm writing
This
it down
is a
now.
side. Okay, steady on. I agree. The Warriors are going to win. I don't think it'll be hugely comfortable. They'll win maybe by a couple of tries. Maybe something like 24-10 or 24-12 or whatever. Come on, the Cronulla, this isn't the West Tigers or the Dragons. Don't act like this is a gimme game. Cronulla have been in the finals the last 2 years.
This was a team that burgled their way into the top 8, right? They lost in the very first round in the top 8.
What do you say? Hold on. What do you say about a team that finishes first in the Premier League? Across 38 games, you can't deny they're the best team in the Premier League. It's the same as the NRL. You play 24 games.
I think.
You cannot deny
This
teams
is one
who
team
make the
that
top
drops
8.
out of the top 8 this year. They're gone. They're going to finish 14th this year, mate. I have never been so confident.
Oh, I'm clipping that. I'm
I've never-
absolutely clipping
14th
that.
this year.
I am clipping
Clip
that.
it and play it back to me and tell me I'm right at the end of the season.
Where do you think the Warriors are finishing then? If you're going to say that about the Sharks, I'm not saying the Sharks are going to be better than the Warriors, but you need to check.
Top 2, mate.
Okay, no, end the segment because there's no respect in anything you're saying. There's no decency in it. There's no logic in it.
Champions
Come on.
League. Are you impressed with Bayern Munich bouncing back against Lazio to win 3-0? And do you?
Hadn't they lost their last 4 games?
Yeah, okay, yeah. How do you rate them? No, the chance? No, they're not. I mean, come on. I mean, they got Harry Kane, sure.
They've got all the money and the resources in the world. They're the most heavily resourced team in that country by a mile. They have a coach who won the Champions League for Chelsea 2 or 3
I've
years
just put
ago.
money at the TAB on both Real and Inter, by the way, because I'm not betting on Man City, but I actually betting on Real and Inter to win the Champions League.
Good value in Real.
Okay. Yeah, they're 550 at the moment, and they'll only come down. Saudi Arabia have put in an official bid to host the 2034 FIFA World Cup.
Yeah, what's the point? You're getting it.
Oh, you were told you were getting it before.
FIFA came out last year and said something like we're giving it to Asia in 2032 or 2034, whenever the next one is.
And there was no other Asian country that put their hand up, even though
Australia did, and then weirdly said, no, we're pulling out now.
Do you think that they got the word that, okay, so if you bid, you might be back in Oceania?
That's quite funny.
Yeah, but look, it's probably quite true. FIFA is the most corrupt sports organisation in the world, and that's saying a lot.
Oh, geez. Tell you what, they would have gotten the head of Soccer Australia or Australia Football, whatever they're called. The FIFA head honchos would have got them into a room and said, "There's 2 things to choose. There's the pad and pen for you to confirm that you want to apply for hosting, and bidding for the hosting rights to the 2034 World Cup. And next to that is a paper bag with a lot of money in it, and you pull out. So your choice. Also, if you sign that thing, we might, chop up a couple of your journals. Also, just about Saudi Arabia, I just want to quickly say this because I saw this on ESPN. Yeah. So they have released, Saudi Arabia, the country, I don't know, the sporting governing body of that country, has released AI images of a new Formula One circuit that they want to put forward to have a second Grand Prix. Now, it includes a part of the track that is raised 20 stories.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool.
It is very cool. It's like cool. Do you watch that film Speed Racer? I think it was like a 70s or 80s film and remade in the 2000s.
Stop it, mate.
No?
I don't do video games.
No, it's a video game.
Look, I want to finish on Sam Kerr. Now, we spoke about this yesterday. Sam Kerr has been charged in England with racially abusing a police officer. The darling of Australian football. An incredible record on the field. This incident, when you read about it, is as bad as it gets. It just sounds like somebody who got drunk, who got angry, who said some terrible things. Her lawyers are now trying to get her off on a technicality, saying that there was an abusive process when she got arrested. They're not saying that she didn't do it. Let me make a small prediction here, Lachlan. Out comes the Golriz shoplifter here. She's going to have mental trauma. She's going to have something that happened in her childhood. She's going to have been hit by a motorbike. You might as well go out and go through the shops and start nicking stuff now, Sam. You might as well, because you're going to get a free pass out of here, aren't you? Tell me I'm wrong here, Lachlan. Tell me that the mental illness card is not going to be played here to get Sam Kerr off these charges. Or to make an excuse.
Yeah, my guess is it will be. I don't want to jump to conclusions because I think if you do that, you're a bit of a garbage person. I think if you fake something like mental health when there's so many people in this day and age.
That's what I despise Golriz and what she's done.
Which I think it's such a low thing to do as a human being. So I don't want to sit here and speculate that she might. In the event that she does, one, I won't be shocked because that's the excuse that everyone pulls out in this day and age. Anyone in the limelight, a celebrity or an athlete or whatever, who does something wrong to defend themselves, they say, I've been just having such a hard time mentally lately.
Like. That's right.
It's like, shut up. It's not an excuse.
And what about her lawyers trying to get her off on abusive process?
So that's her saying that she was abused herself by the cops or something.
Well,
right?
just saying that they did something technically wrong in her arrest, is what it is.
So that's like a Dalton Papali'i situation.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not guilty.
No, but the equipment failed when you were recorded doing 140 or 50 down the motorway.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't mean that you didn't do it. It means it's Man City getting off the charges of financial fair play because their lawyers are clever and more clever than yours. Keep an eye on this one, ladies and gentlemen. It ain't over yet. ARU Andy Raymond Unfiltered. He joins us every Wednesday to talk all things league. Warriors this weekend, the Vegas round. How his beloved Eels are going to perform. Any surprises in the top 8? Because 3 teams normally drop out every year and are replaced. Who are those teams to fall? Who are those teams to rise? Plus, what kind of punishment is Spencer Lanu going to get for the monkey comment? ARU Andy Raymond Unfiltered. I'm picking the Warriors to dick the Cronulla Sharks this weekend, mate. Tell me that it's not going to happen.
No, I'm going to tell you it is going to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen easily.
Okay.
This Sharks side, I see so much there, but they haven't actually shown it in the last 2 years.
No, they've been disappointed.
But there is something there, and when they are on, terrific. I actually think there may be either A, some mental scars or a lot of revenge brewing up from the Sharks. Let's rewind 12 months. Do you remember the game between the Warriors and the Sharks over our side of the ditch? The Sharks were up maybe 28-0.
Yeah, 28-8 I think it was, 20 points.
Warriors.
Yeah.
And one of, if not the performance of the season from the Warriors. What does that do to an athlete? What does it do to their mindset? Does it put a bit of spook into you? Does it worry you? Does it make you want to bash these blokes even more? I'm really looking forward to seeing how the Warriors look, mate. I really am. And it is a fundamentally different Warriors side in round 1 than what we saw any time last year with Kane Tuiapiki at the back, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Kurt Capewell. This is an improved lineup on paper. You don't win games on paper, of course, but this is an improved lineup. You've got 2 superstars of the game in Tuivasa-Sheck and Capewell added to what already happened last year. What a terrific spot to be in.
Look, just looking at that, the consistency last year gives a lot of confidence, I think, to all us Warriors fans. It wasn't a one-off game. That this is the whole thing. You don't win 16 games in that competition by chance, okay? Winning 2 out of every 3 games, winning a finals game. So I think that this season has to be approached on the front foot like that, because I know that there's going to be other teams that are going to go, second-year syndrome, all of that kind of stuff. But the Warriors are a better team, as you've just explained, than they were last year. So, a lot of it comes down to injuries. We know a lot of it comes down to momentum, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
How good is it, mate? And how good was it on the weekend? look, the second game wasn't perhaps that good, but just seeing rugby league back, the NRL back, the hype train to me got a bit overwhelming in the end from Vegas, but the fact that competition has kicked off, I thought it's a great gimmick. It's a great way to start the big show, and we get it back this weekend, mate. I can't wait.
You know what? I reckon you've summed it up perfectly, gimmick. And it was. And it was a successful one, and congratulations to everyone involved. But to me, it's wonderful, and I'm not saying it's not wonderful, but it was 2 games of footy to me, mate, and a wonderful way to kick off the season. And I guess unofficially, the real footy, as we know it, it gets underway tomorrow night. Terrific way to start. Let's be honest. The crowd exceeded expectation. The marketing boffins with their ponytails and their bifocals, they would be delighted because there's NRL everywhere. The sponsors have got wonderful coverage, more than they would have ever expected, and that's NRL sponsors, that's club sponsors. That can only be a good thing. But the real footy, we get serious tomorrow night when it all starts again with the Knights and the Raiders, which I think potentially a great game. You look at the favourites for the remaining 6 games, keeping in mind the 2 outsiders won last weekend.
Yeah, right.
But I'm not comfortable as a favourite on any of these remaining 6 games. The Knights favourites to the Raiders, the Warriors favourites to the Sharks, the Panthers favourites to the Storm, the Eels favourites to the Bulldogs, the Titans favourites to the Dragons, and the Cowboys favourites to the Dolphins. Round 1 and round 2, probably up until round 6, traditionally, historically, statistically, it is where we see a bunch of upsets and we all then settle into a groove after about 8 weeks. I know everyone, likes to have a wager, or a lot of people like to have a wager. Oh, I tell you what, I might be keeping my money in my pocket this weekend and just getting a visual of what some of these sides look like, mate, because the 6 favourites would all have me a little worried.
Finally, Spencer Leniu. Now, if he was in New Zealand, of course, he'd be claiming mental illness and childhood trauma and everything else.
Yep.
But you live in Australia and you seem to be a bit more realistic about these kind of things. I was fascinated by the fact that he doubled down after the game and just said it's fun and games on the field, that he's absolutely unrepentant, that he almost got into a punch-up in the corridor afterwards. Apparently he's taunting the Broncos players. His cousin posts something on Instagram with the monkey emoji in it.
Yep.
You're adding all of this up and I'm thinking, this guy's obviously dumb or he's stupid or he honestly thinks he's bulletproof. How many weeks, given the fact that Montoya got 4 for a homophobic slur, how many weeks is he going to get, do you think, for that?
How many weeks do I think he's going to get? I think he'll get 6 weeks. How many weeks should he get? If they're legitimate, mate, it's 2024 and we can say society's gone soft and you shouldn't be playing if you can't handle some words. We should know better. And as superstars and as public figures, not as role models, but as public figures, we need to do better.
Well, look, they're ambassadors, they're salespeople for their sport. We've had an incident over here with the Hurricanes women doing a separatist, racist addition to their haka, calling out all people who voted for the government as redneck supremacists and all of this kind of garbage stuff. Again, you're working for an employer. You're embarrassing that employer. That's the consequence of it, isn't it?
It is, mate. And look, me... and I've got a lot of redneck in me. Don't worry about that. But me, I think you'll get 6 weeks. I think the NRL needs to stand up and grow a set of balls and say, if you're proven guilty, you are gone for 12, and this is the line in the sand, and the next bloke goes for 12 weeks as well.
BTE, the Brendon Telfer Experience, the doyen of New Zealand sports broadcasting, over 5 decades in the business. So much to talk about, including gold medals at the World Indoor Track and Field Champs. Brendan has been to so many Olympic Games, covered so much track and field. Put a perspective on that for us. Plus, of course, I'm sure we're going to clash about the Hurricanes Poua because he is a left-wing dribbler. BTE. What about the World Indoor Athletics Champs, mate, where we get 2 golds and 2 silver?
Yeah, they were very good performances. All I'm saying is, and you know this, Martin, as well, it's a very common thing in all of these sports now. They're always wanting to put on big world indoor championships, outdoor championships, and they use the world championship title very freely.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that this is the year of the Olympic Games, right? And so in athletics, most of the big names only want to peak once this year, and all of their attention, all of their training, all focuses around Paris in July, August, whenever it is this year. And so the World Indoor Championships, which was way down the pecking order, it suffers a bit, I suppose, from what you might call Commonwealth Games-itis, is that it's not a big enough event. And I was reading a story last week in a British newspaper about how all the British stars basically opted out of the World Indoor Championships because they're focusing on the Olympic Games. So it's unfortunate that it's coincided with this year. But having said that, I'm very pleased for those New Zealand athletes because there's good prize money at these World Indoor Championships, nowhere near as high as the World Outdoor Championships, which is the real deal. They come in on the radar screen just under the Olympic Games, and anyone in athletics goes to the World Track and Field Championships, which is outdoor. But those two Kiwi guys that won gold medals, Geordie Beamish and Hamish Kerr, they picked up, from what I can gather, $40,000
nice.
apiece. And the women who did well and some of those other events like in the pole vault will also get, I think, $20,000-$30,000 for finishing second or third. Even Zoe Hobbs, who I think finished fourth in the 60 metres, will probably get a few $1,000 in her pocket when she leaves Glasgow. So it's good, really good for our athletes. And and realistically for our athletes, we don't really succeed at this level and with these sort of numbers that we've seen over the last week at this championship. And so, yeah, it's something that we can be very pleased with. But let's just keep it in mind that the big test for these athletes won't be the World Indoor Championships. It's what they do in Paris in 3 or 4 months or 4 or 5 months' time. And there's I was also thinking of this of the
Hurricanes Poua
women who are in trouble because they put some nasty sort of political comments in there about this government. But I'm thinking, so they've been copying it. But, you could remember, when Josh Kronfeld had an anti-nuclear message on the back of his headgear.
And he got told to take it off. Remember, he wasn't allowed to do it again.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be too critical of these women. I don't think it was especially the smartest sort of platform for them to get their point across. But I tell you, privately, they're probably thinking, hey, this has really worked. They're all talking about us.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anyone's watching, Brendan. That's the whole point.
Yeah,
you might...
But I'm saying it doesn't matter because whether they were watching or not, they are now aware of what they said because of the media reaction to it.
But having said that, is all publicity good publicity? I don't agree with it on this front because this is a competition that is struggling, that is fledgling, that only exists because it's 100% subsidised. They've got no viewers, no spectators, only interest because the sports media feels it has to cover them and they have no sponsors. They've got to generate their own money at some stage, and slamming the door shut on potentially your own audience by kind of referring to anyone who's actually interested or voted for a change of government. Look, I voted for a change of government, Brendan, because I thought that the Labor Party were mishandling the country. That doesn't make me a redneck, a racist, a white supremacist, or anything else they've accused us of. So I'm offended by it purely because I just think that if you want to say these things, do it in your own personal space, but representing the Hurricanes, which is a region and a team and is supposedly inclusive of everyone, and that's the message New Zealand Rugby foisters out there. Well, it's just the wrong place to do it for a start, and there's got to be a consequence.
Well, it may be. You're sounding very sort of wokish about it all, in a way. But
I've got a right to be offended, Brendan. I'm white and I'm male. Yeah. I can be offended.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
Probably. Yeah, but I'm saying I just think that
first time
probably privately they're saying this has been great. We've got an amazing publicity for the comments that we made, and we got our message out there. Even though not many people might have seen it, as you say, it's probably right. It's here we are talking about it. 2 aging white Pākehā males talking about this Hurricanes women rugby team and what they said in their haka more than anything.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.